Bien bonjour boys and girls, my name is DT, I'm a paper designer and welcome to my workshop. And I'm really excited to share with you guys a project that I had in mind for so many years because I didn't thought I would actually get a chance to work on that. One thing you guys should know about me is that I'm kind of a nerd. I like a lot of things related to pop culture. I am into Star Wars, Marvel, DC, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you name it. And with those fandoms comes collectibles and toys. And I like my toys. I do have a few toys in my collection and you can actually see some of my favorite right on my desk. And one of the things I like the most about toys is actually the history behind them. Especially toys from the 80s and the 90s and how the toy companies would actually market and advertise them to the kids. There are a lot of really interesting stories about some of the biggest toy franchises like G.I. Joes, Barbies, the Ninja Turtles, the Power Rangers. But today, we are here to talk about a franchise that has a really special place in my heart. And of course, I'm talking about Transformers. More than meets the eye. I have always been fascinated and obsessed with Transformers toys. There is something about, there was something about having a toy that could actually change into another toy that was really appealing to me. And I guess the whole puzzle thing was actually really fun. And when I think about Transformers, I think about one of the best fictional characters that were ever created to me, Optimus Prime.
My name is Optimus Prime.
I have always been a really big fan of that character. And growing up, I think him and Spider-Man actually helped create that vision of what I think a hero should be. And that is why those two characters have a really special place in my heart. And of course, when you talk about Optimus Prime, you have to give credit to the man, or actually the voice, that is behind all of that. And that man is Peter Cullen. He was the original voice behind the character in the 80s, and to this day, he's still playing Optimus Prime in the most recent cartoons and movies. Anyway, all that fucking long intro to let you guys know why I was actually so excited to learn that Peter Cullen was coming to the UK. He's coming to Comic Con Liverpool in a few days, and as I live in France, it's going to be much easier to actually be able to meet him. Because most of the time when he goes to a convention like that, it's in the US or in Canada. But this year, for the first time, he's coming to the UK. And I can't miss that. So now that I know that I actually have a chance to meet him, it's time for me to work on a project that I have in mind for so many years. And that's going to be an homage piece that symbolizes my love for the character of Optimus Prime and the man who's behind him. The first thing I like to do when I start a new project is to search for some reference images. And I am going to make a classic G1 inspired Prime. And to protect and showcase the sculpture, I'm going to put it in a glass bell. I found this one in my local hobbycraft store and it stands about 20 centimeters high. The first idea I had was to build a bust with only his head and his torso. Something looking like this with some sort of a base under it. I also thought it would look really nice if Optimus was like in a Superman pose, holding his chest panel open and revealing the matrix of leadership inside. So I could gild the matrix with some gold leaf and really make it stand out. I made a 3D model of the glass bell using its measurements to make sure the figure would actually fit inside, and then realized that the Superman pose was not going to happen. He would be way too wide to fit inside, or he would actually have to be really small. So I think I'm going to go with a more classic pose. And here I am using some front and side reference images I found online to start modeling his head. And I think he is looking pretty good. The rest of his body was very easy to make. It's not like I'm using some really complex geometric shapes here. I'm trying to find the right balance between having a detailed model and at the same time using the least amount of faces possible. Then I made him some fists and moved his arms a little bit. I also lifted his head up, so it looks like he's staring into the distant future. And yeah, I think he looks more heroic that way. And so far, things are looking nice. I think it looks a bit weird with his leg chopped off like that, so I guess I'm going to make him stand on the base. The figure is going to be all white with some touches of gold, but I wanted to see how it looked with some colors. Okay, so I'm just done with the base, and I think it looks pretty nice. Nothing too fancy, just plain and simple. And here's the final look I'm going with, and I think he looks awesome. After that, I had to unfold everything using Pepakura. And boy, this is going to be tricky to build. I mean, some of the flaps here are like a millimeter wide. So yeah, I printed the templates, and yeah, this is going to be a challenge. One thing I did notice here is that the paper I used was too thin, so when I flipped the page, I could actually see the ink going through. So I reprinted the templates using a lighter inking. And it's even harder to see now. But the ink isn't showing through no more. Here is the type of tool I'm using when I'm doing my scoring. It's usually a rounded and blunt piece of metal, or sometimes I like to use a dotting tool like that. But I think those tools are going to be a bit too thick for the project. So I'm going to use that pointy needle to score my pieces. I'm not really sure if you guys can see the difference on the camera or not, but I can tell you now that the lines are twice as thin. And now I have to score everything, and I'm really taking my time because I don't have a lot of room for mistakes, so I have to be really precise. For this build, I'm using some regular white PVA glue, and I just apply a tiny amount on the flaps. And then I'm using some tweezers to hold the paper in place so the glue has time to set. Closing a piece on itself is always tricky, especially at that scale. So I would just apply a small amount of glue on one edge and then just wait for it to dry before I move on to the next one. Because if you rush and you fiddle with the piece too much, everything is just going to fall apart. So be patient, my friend. So yeah, that face was hard to glue, especially that part between his eyes and his nose. Those faces were so small. But I think I actually got to the toughest part, and the rest of the build is going to be easier now. Oh, and one thing I wanted to show you guys. I bought those precision magnifying glasses on Amazon. And was a bit on the fence at first because I thought it would be kind of gimmicky. But turns out they were actually helpful to see some of the tiny details. Now back to work. So I just completed the head and I thought it would look really cool to make his eyes gold, so they would pop even more. Now I just have to glue those antennas and the head would be pretty much done. And I'm very happy about the way the head turned out. It was definitely a challenge, especially for those antennas. But he looks so cool. And I really like the gold eyes. I think it's a great callback to the original G1 toy, because he had yellow eyes. Doesn't he look cute? Now I am moving on onto his arms, and the toughest part was probably to glue and attach those exhaust pipes that are on his shoulders. His fists were actually tricky to build, especially this area around his thumb, and now all I have to do is to attach his fist to his arm. Here I just completed his left arm. But the difference is that he has an Autobot symbol on his shoulder. A symbol that I gilded with 23 karat gold leaf. I actually cut the symbol out of the white paper and then glued a gold square from the inside. The toughest part was to actually re-glue those eyebrows pieces of his eyes. They were really small and thin and it was a pain to actually get the glue to stick to them. And I had to be as precise as I could, and I only had one shot, otherwise the glue would actually mess up the gold underneath. Now I'm moving on to the rest of his body, and here I am working on his neck collar. And these are just some thin pieces of paper that I just stacked on top of each other to give more volume. And the head is going to sit right there. On his chest panel, I added more shapes and layers, because I thought they just look flat otherwise. And I'm pretty much using the same shapes as on the statue that I found. For his ab grill section, I am cutting some rectangle pieces of paper that I'm going to stack on top of each other. And I really love the volume and the shadows you get once you hit some light on it. So here's what I got so far. I still have the legs to do and the whole base to build. And it's 2:30 in the morning. And we are leaving for Liverpool on Saturday morning. So I still have one day to do the whole thing. But we have a meeting tomorrow morning and I don't know if I'm actually going to... Now I just have to finish the legs and now we'll be pretty much done with the body. And now I just have to glue his head on. And he is pretty much done. And boy, he is glorious. And just before we move on to the base, I wanted to show you guys a little clip of Peter Cullen explaining to us how he got the inspiration for the voice of Optimus Prime.
My brother Larry, a captain in the Marine Corps, had returned from Vietnam. He was a decorated Marine, and the Bronze Star with V and a couple of Purple Hearts. And we were sharing an apartment, going through a difficult time in my life, when Larry came down, and it was about 1984. And he would always take a little interest in where I was going every day. So he said, "Peter, where are you going today?" "I'm going to audition. I'm going to be, I'm auditioning as a truck." And he did the same thing. And so I said, "But Larry, he's an evidently he's a hero truck. He's a real, I mean, he's a hero. And his face got somber and he said, Peter, if you're going to be a hero, be a real hero. Don't be a Hollywood hero type with all the BS and all the yelling and screaming and trying to be tough. Be strong enough to be gentle. Okay, Larry, yeah. So as his voice is ringing in my ears as I'm driving to the audition, and I read the copy, and Larry is just coming out. His voice, the way he talked to me, and it said, you know, I'm Optimus Prime. No, it was, my name is Optimus Prime. And the softness in his advisory tone was significant, and so the words just rolled off my tongue. I'm from the planet Cybertron, and blah, 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 blah. And 2 weeks later, my agent called me up and said, oh, Peter, remember that Transformers thing, the truck? And he said, yeah. He said, you got the part of Optimus Prime. I said, I do? He says, yeah, and you also have another part called Ironhide? What's this Ironhide?
So as you could see, his brother was a huge inspiration to him, and he was a huge influence on how Peter Cullen would actually portray the character later. So I thought it would be perfectly fit to add a little nod to his brother on this piece. So I made the 3 medals that he received as a war veteran. A couple of purple hearts, and a bronze star that I'm just going to glue onto the base. Last thing I wanted to show you guys was this. The future is built on dreams is one of the many great quotes of Optimus Prime, and this one just really resonates with me. I could have done a much cleaner job cutting those letters, but in my defense, it's around 5 in the morning right now. My eyes are shutting down, and I have to admit, I may be crying a little bit too because I had to focus so hard and I'm so freaking tired. But the whole thing is done now, and I think it's time for me to show you guys the result. I have to say, I'm actually really happy about how this guy turned out, but I'm a little bit sad too because I just finished him like 5 minutes ago and I already have to say goodbye to him. With time, I've actually learned not to get too attached to my pieces because I knew that eventually I would just have to let them go. But still, I have to say this one is really special to me and I had a lot of fun building him, and to this day, this guy is probably one, if not the most challenging build I've ever done. And I've done quite a lot of things. Anyway, it's time to say my farewell to my buddy Optimus here because we have some place to go. To Liverpool! Oh! Bruh. So we're in Comic Con Liverpool right now and we have a lot of things to do, and as you can see, it's pretty packed, so let's go. So the convention was actually a lot of fun. There were tons of toys, activities, really cool display pieces, but I think I will talk about this more in depth in another video. Because now it's time for me to get into the queue. There were about 20 persons in front of us when we got into line. And just a few minutes later, so many people just packed behind us and the line got crazy long. And after 2 hours of waiting, it's finally time.
Hi, how are you?
So happy to finally meet you.
Thank you, you too.
How are you enjoying this day in UK so far? Yeah, happy to meet you. I actually made you something.
Oh boy.
I'm a paper artist. And
oh boy. Oh my God.
Homage piece to you. That's cool.
You made that?
Yeah, that's cool. I'll check that. So, I know your brother means a lot to you, so in a way, he's kind of my hero's hero. So I included 2 popular hearts and a bronze star on the bottom.
Wow.
You're my childhood hero. Okay. Optimus Prime means a lot to me, you know. So I just wanted to thank you for all of it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
I'm happy to meet you guys. There was so many things I wanted to say, you know. I thought giving you something means a lot more because you can only talk so much here to me. So
Thank you. Wow.
It's incredible.
this is what it looks like when you actually start it out.
Oh my God. That's fantastic.
I feel like it.
Try that.
Yep.
I can leave you the
Oh, this is incredible. Wow, how that's special.
Yeah.
Actually finished it like a few hours before leaving.
Yeah, sure, I bet. You know.
I had so much pressure to finish it on time because
Of
we come from
course.
France, you know, so I didn't have a lot of time to actually finish that.
Oh my goodness, it's.
I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. Wow. Wow.
Thank you so much.
Do you want him to sign her name?
Could you sign your name and then write "Stay Legendary" for her?
Stay what?
Stay Legendary.
Oh, this is so special. He'll treasure this. What happened,
Thank you.
I hope you're having a nice time here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much.
Good day. You too. Thank you.
So as you guys could see, my meeting with Peter Cullen was pretty emotional, I guess both for me and for him. I was actually really surprised and pleased to see that the gift that I made him seemed to have moved him, I guess. There were so many things I wanted to say to him, I wanted to talk about, but in those kind of setups, in conventions, usually people just get in the queue, get the stuff they want to get signed, get it signed, say thank you, and they just leave. And the whole interaction actually lasts for like 30 seconds to a minute. So I wanted to be more than just one of the 100 guys he was going to see on that convention and actually give him something that he will remember. I do think he's going to remember that because his reaction seemed really genuine, and if he doesn't, I definitely will. So I actually got this bad boy signed. Definitely one of the most iconic Transformer toys, period, and I'm really happy to have that in my collection. And I also got him to sign this wooden base for another project that I'm going to talk to you guys about really soon. I know I talked a lot today, but this was a really special project for me, and I really wanted to share that with you guys. This kind of project is actually why I enjoy art so much. Just being able to make and build something that is going to create so many memories, emotions, and stories is definitely one of the reasons why I love what I do. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you'd like to see me build next time. And if you like me, you like the Power Rangers, you should definitely check that video where I made a golden dragon and tiger coin that I gave to the Green Ranger himself. The link is in the description. And if you boys and girls are interested in seeing more work in progress photos and videos of what we build, you guys can join us on Facebook and Instagram where we post a lot of things. And until then, I will see you in the next workshop. Iko, and roll out!